It turned out that the queer future you envisioned was no bullshit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the QTCast, the queer and trans podcast for the Queer and Trans Research Lab, housed at the Mark S. Bonham Center for Sexual Diversity Studies at the University of Toronto. In today's special episode, you'll hear an exclusive interview with Dr. Shana Ye, who discusses her new book project, Queer Chimerica, a speculative autoethnography of the cool child, which is an exciting mix of queer theory, autoethnography, and science fiction. Stay tuned after the interview to catch Dr. Ye's sneak peek reading of an excerpt from her manuscript. Dr. Shana Ye is Assistant Professor of Women and Gender Studies at University of Toronto Scarborough and in the Women and Gender Studies Institute at the University of Toronto, and is a Martha L. A. McCain Faculty Fellow of the Queer and Trans Research Lab this year. Her research lies at the intersection of transnational feminism, queer social reproduction, queer cinema, post-socialist studies, and theories of affect and trauma. Finally, you can find us at QTCast_ on social media, where you can also catch Dr. Ye's reading and some of her illustrations. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the QTCast wherever you're listening to us right now. And without further ado, here's the multi-talented Dr. Shana Ye.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. The Chinese pronunciation of my name is Shana Ye, but in Chinese we say the last name first and first name last. Yeah, so in Chinese, my name is Ye Shana. So, and there's also the intonation. It's really interesting to think about how people address you differently. It's like you automatically have this different identity. So, kind of like as a bilingual speaker, you always like this fluidity of identity is pretty much your everyday reality. Mm-hmm. So I think my interest in queer fluidity has a lot to do with my being fluid in language speaking or in traversing between different countries, and the experiences of making myself fluid and also flexible. So pretty much the larger question I'm interested in I would say is the relationship between queer fluidity and the fluidity and flexibility of labor and capital. Mm-hmm. Should I say more? Or?
Yes, please. I'm fascinated.
Yeah, I got to know queer theory when I was in middle school. So when I was in like 14, 15 years old, that's back in late 90s. I learned queer theory in China, and back then there were not many publications on queer theory at all. Then I decided to go to the United States to study feminist and queer studies.
May I interrupt and ask for a second? So I'm familiar with like the United States 1990s like narrative of queer theory. How is that different in China, or like what was the relationship? Like, were you reading Chinese queer theorists as your first approach to it, or were you getting American queer theorists? Like, what did that look like for you?
I would say even now, queer theory in mainland China or the PRC is still very marginalized. It's kind of like really confined in the academia and also the transnational queer and feminist activist circle. People still talk about homosexuality, LGBT, right, or the Chinese translation of so-called homosexual or gay or whatever. So 同志 literally means the comrade, this more communist lexicon.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so queer is still not commonly used in China. One of the history of queer is from the show Queer as Folk. Yeah, so you see people who use the word queer, they're usually like influenced by the transnational media,
right,
or the transnational activists. So queer theory is still kind of like people would think, especially the history of queer theory is tied to post-structuralism. Like, so people who are interested in Foucault, in Derrida, they might kind of know, or Butler, they might know queer a little bit, but I would say it's still not commonly used in China. So my first encounter with queer theory was from this anthology. It's translated by Chinese sociologist Li Yinhe. Yeah. So she got her PhD at Pittsburgh University in sociology, I believe, and she was among the first folks who translate these Western theories into Chinese.
Cool.
So it's the anthology. I remember the first one is Thinking Sex. And there are also some works by Butler. And back then, to me, I just feel like this is so cool.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a cool, I love the word cool in the context too of like, because that's what queer theory was trying to be, right? Like it's counterculture, it's cool, it's on the edge of this kind of non-normative discourse.
But I found really interesting the affect of queer, the so-called queer, is very different. If you look at Heather Love's work, right? So Heather Love talk about when we think about queer is something related to historical injury, right? So there's this queer live in the darkness, and we dig them out, and this type of pain is fundamental. It's at center of the LGBT or queer knowledge production here in the West.
Yeah.
But if you think about the transnational route of queer theory imported into China through Taiwan, especially that was a time queer as a cultural phenomenon when an identity emerged against the gay identity. So gays being conformative and middle class, and queer is this very cheerful, useful, anti-everything, that kind of
more radical leg of totally.
And queer is translated into Chinese, literally means the cool child. That is the title of my work.
Wow.
So you see there's like the pond here. And I thought it was really interesting. So in the 90s, there's this this beverage from Coca-Cola. It's literally called Cooler, which is the cool child, but then the English translation is a Q, something like Q. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you see all this different trajectory intertwined together, shaping the affect and the attachment, like affective attachment to the word queer in the Chinese context.
Wow, my mind, there's just so many interesting avenues. This is fascinating.
That's why it's so hard to write about it. There's like so much.
Well, already, you have like the economic and the ideological and the way that consumption and like consumer culture factors into this. Right. I'm so excited for the work you're doing. On that note, could you tell me a little bit about, so first of all, I want to hear about your manuscript, what the title is, what it's about, how it's going. But I'm also really interested in this discourse or this discussion of fluidity that you're bringing here, because I know that your manuscript also kind of defies genre boundaries. Like it's fluid in where it stands as a text. So I was wondering if you could speak to that.
So I guess let's rewind a little bit, like go back to the relationship between queer fluidity and the fluidity and flexibility of labor and capital. So growing up, like just like learning all of this, one thing that has puzzled me is the seemingly temporal coincidence of the rise of a queer theory in the 90s, and also the post-socialist transition, China from the socialism to post-socialism, and also the vast amount of Chinese labor rejoined the world economy. So I kind of feel like these two things happen at the same time. Is this really coincident, or actually they are intertwined?
Totally, and even from what minor U.S. history I know about queer theory's kind of creation, it was just you could not separate it from socialist activism.
Yeah, but I think what is interesting to me is there is a shift. If you look at the 50s, the homophile movement in the United States, we're here, and then to the 60s and then the 70s, you see this more social issue, intersectional based movement turning toward this more minority model. right? So this happened from the 50s to the 70s in the so-called West. And at the same time, I feel like in China, there's like a very similar process. You see the working class gradually losing its power. So I think Calvin Floyd talk about the decline of masculinity, the working class masculinity from the 20s to the 70s, the neoliberal change, and then in the 90s. And I think he hinted there because the conventional working class masculinity fell, and it actually gives some opportunity for the new type of a queer fluid identity or different understanding of a queerness to emerge.
Yeah.
So I think this is what happened in the United States. If you look, globally or geopolitically, life in the 90s in the United States was actually quite precarious. But then the international or transnational representation of the United States was not. If you look at so the 90s, the post or when the Soviet Union dissolved, the United States suddenly lost this external rivalry.
Right.
So the conservative government start to create new enemies. Like inside is homosexuals and migrant workers. It happened at the same time. And then we have the AIDS problem in the United States. And then you see this governmental cut of tax. All of those things happening. And at the same time, the LGBT activists in the United, or scholars in the United States, if you think about Butler was an AIDS activist. So they kind of retreated from that sort of a social movement. And Butler was a Marxist. Right. And they kind of retreat from that Marxist labor-based movement to a more post-structuralist, Foucauldian, Saidian sort of a way of looking at identity.
Anti-normativity kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. So the activists here in the United States or North America felt frustrated with the domestic politics. At the same time, they found a different battlefield transnationally. Right. So this is at the same time the post-independent countries or post-socialist countries like China start to undergone the transition, right? So society is opening up, and lots of opportunities of like NGOs. Different kinds of work being created. So I kind of feel like what happened in the United States was somehow backed up by what's going on other places.
Interesting.
And when we look at the genealogy of a queer theory or queer theorization in general, we think, okay, this is originated from the U.S. or the French post-structuralism, right? But we don't really see how the centrality of queer theory is actually built up from multiple locations in other places.
The tale of like Western academia ignoring anything non-Western is a very long one.
Right. Yeah. And also people talk about the intellectual trajectory, but they don't really talk about the labor.
Right.
What are actually, when we think about, everything happened in the United States, life was precarious in the 90s. However, LGBT life was starting to look more prominent. Right. Why? Because there are, McDonaldization, Mormonization or something. And those things happening allowed the LGBT or the marginalized people in the so-called first world or global north to kind of enjoy a life without to actually see the cost of their good life, right? This good life, the cost of the good life is usually invisible. So I think what would really I'm really interested is how the labor in other places, actually those invisibilized labors contribute to what's going on, or this idea of queer the queer life is getting better. Right. So that's how I want to link what's going on in China and the United States together.
Wow, that as just like a background, how did you even start writing? Like, what did the inception of that project look like for you?
I don't know. It is really hard. So I have this word called Chimerica. So it's chimera of, it's play with the word of a chimera. So China and America. Right. People talk about China and the United States as a rivalry. But for me, I always see, the narrative of rivalry actually obscure how the two countries or the two nations as a global power work together. Right. So in order to trace the connections of, all those queer stuff I was talking about, we must start from a different genealogy. We must to connect, the queers in the United States and those in China together, to look at them as a chimera, I would say.
Yeah, right.
Right, yeah.
Wow, that's so fascinating as like a central analytic. And it's in your title as well,
right? Yeah.
What is the complete title of your manuscript, or working title?
Right now is called Queer Chimerica, a speculative autoethnography of the queer child. So there are three key concepts: Chimerica, autoethnography, speculative, I guess, autoethnography, and also the queer child.
Like, that's how you write a title. Like, that's doing it right.
I'm actually really grateful. The previous title was very different, but this one was actually given one of my blind reviewer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, the reviewer was saying, this concept of speculative autoethnography is really something you're talking about, but then you don't have that word. So, yeah. I have been writing about the queer shit, I want to say, since long time ago. Like sometimes you get to the point you feel like, okay, I have nothing to say. Like I feel like I am at the stage right now. Totally. Everything is like polishing, and also we talk about this. So the manuscript is written as a fiction. Right. So like now, majority of my energy and time is working on the plots. Cool. Yeah, it's not on my the research part. I would say the research part was done 2 years ago. Then I'm like, why I'm choosing this difficulty? I trapped myself in that.
The hardest part of both worlds just put together, right? Like...
But then the speculative part is actually very interesting. So I think this is actually what keeps me moving. Right. Yeah. So this is my. I received the feedback from the two reviewers, and now I'm doing the revision according to their feedback, and hopefully, the manuscript will be done by the end of this year.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, hopefully.
What was the decision like for you to mix speculative autoethnography with fiction? And like, the more traditional academic manuscript with this, and it's science fiction specifically, right? So what was that decision like for you?
So in my method section, I have the whole this theory, blah blah blah, all of that to explain exactly what you just said. But my very original, the what really motivated me to do that was when I was converting my dissertation into the book, I just stuck. There was a period of time I didn't know how to write. I think the issue, like now, looking back, I think the problem was I have too many interviews. So I did 82 interviews.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah, like so many. Yeah. And especially like my personality, like I want to, if somebody says something interesting, I just gonna follow, I'm gonna chase, I'm gonna dig.
Totally.
Yeah. And I feel like when I proposed my dissertation, I wanted to just like look at 80s onward or 90s onwards. Right. But then I actually traced back to the 50s. So there were just like, there were too many materials, I would say. And lots of stories. So I had 82 interviews and I had 12 live, I would say like life story, something like that. And I would say all of them are great stories. I just don't know how to tell the story. So one day I suddenly thought about, what if I have one of the characters to have multiple memory? Cool. So that could be something, this person's being implanted some other people's memory that might allow me to talk about many stories, but just one person. Then just like from there, I gradually come to this idea, if you have other people's memory, what is going to happen to you? And how do we actually build connections? Because I feel like all of our research, it comes down to the intimacy, the connections we want to build, the boundary we want to break, right? So this idea of writing something fictional really allowed me to do all of this work. And at the same time, that was a time like I read lots of sci-fi and watched alien shows and weird stuff. Yeah, like amazing. The TV show Fargo.
It's like the first season of that.
Yeah, like super realistic, but suddenly there are like UFOs like just flying around, and I really like that. That format.
Yeah.
So when I first wrote this, everything's like very realistic, but then suddenly there were like a absurd thing. Queer things happen.
If you had to condense the plot of this speculative autoethnography, what would it be?
So the plot,
which is just what you said you were working on. So I understand it's in.
Everything is figured out.
Okay,
I got everything figured out.
I love it.
Yeah, after so many years. So the larger background is in the future, there is this empire, this new empire. Called Chimerica. So Chimerica is both this empire, the future empire, but also the theoretical base of the book. And this empire use queer memory, so they require marginalized people to donate their experiences in order to transform the privileged. So that is a required project the future empire is doing. And the purpose of that on the surface is to correct historical injury or what has been done to promote justice and also social prosperity. But then what is at center of this project is a better way of control the people. So that's the larger. So it's like when the so-called normal marginalized people being normalized. So one idea I'm really interested in is what happened if we win the battle, right? So this is the future. The so-called queer, we win the battle, like we are the normative people. Then what happened? How this type of freedom can destroy something, authoritarianism couldn't. So that's the larger question. So the plot is, I treat this protagonist who is the engineer, who is the creator of this project. And from her, so now something happened, the project didn't go as they expected. So she need to fix what's going on. And through fixing the errors in the system, she actually realized that her memory was being erased. So the whole process of investigating what's going on, what went wrong, it was actually her remembering herself being different, and her understanding of herself is different from what she has been telling other people. She thought she is a victim of the LGBT movement. Yeah. But then she was actually, she's also the person who did some damage and violence to other people. Then eventually she regained her memory and realizing she is also part of that lead to what's going on. I would say like the way she figured it out. So she's not being. So I think this might be the place we can transition to speculative autoethnography versus autoethnography. Mm-hmm. So I think autoethnography has been, something queer and feminist scholars use a lot, because feminism itself is, in a way, is a practice of autoethnography, auto-theorizing.
Declaring your positionality and
Right. I'm very attracted to this method, but at the same time, I kind of feel like this method could, prioritize this I voice, which I really have problem with. Right. So writing this speculative autoethnography, this narrator I is actually not me, but it's somebody I know in the field. But then there is me. There is me in this whole fiction.
Cool.
But the me is being seen by other people. So there are multiple exchange of subjectivity. So you see something, you see this event through other people's eyes. And you also see, or I also see myself being viewed by other people. I think this allowed me to, one, become a better feminist ethnographer.
I'm sure, yeah.
Because, like when you write fiction, there were all kinds of things, how to build your character, how to write compelling characters, something like that. If you look at those criteria, those are actually, for me, there are useful ways to understand other people as real people.
Right. Like, what is the goal? What do they want? What drives them? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Or what is in their purse?
Right.
What is in their backpack? Like we don't often pay attention to these smaller things when we conduct ethnography.
The materiality of it.
Right. Yeah. I've seen lots of interesting work, but one thing I kind of dislike, but I don't know how to deal with that. But that's something I kind of try to critically engage is you see lots of ethnography, and they would say this is an argument, and these are the example. So Mary says something, Eric says something, blah, blah, blah. There are all these quote or like part of the story, but then you don't really see the person there. Even we claim that our ethnography is based on real people, lived experiences. So I kind of feel like I'm not really happy with that. Then using this fictional way or speculative way of writing is my way to kind of think about different ways of constructing the experiences or recounting the experiences, and also seeing myself, my own relationship with the so-called subject of the study.
So as part of your process for writing this, like, are you picturing what it would be like for you to be in these people's bodies and lives? Like, are you, when you're writing from that I position, is it this kind of like intimate, like, are you like seeing it if you could become those people, kind of? Is that what it's...
So part of that is like that, but then I think it's tricky. If you see yourself as you can become the other person, you kind of assume this liberal possible self, like you can consume everybody, right? Yeah. So one of the plot in this fiction is so Chimerica require people to donate their experiences, right? And the method or the mechanism of that is you actually go into this pod, and there were these I call this immersive synchronization. Right, so the things in your body, it's complicated. There are like the technological part there, but basically, so this person, this main character, can immerse themselves with other people's experiences.
Right.
So the way I'm writing this is something is being seen through her eyes. So when I describe an event, it's like this person sees through other people's eyes.
Cool.
But the problem is it causes lots of confusions there. I do want to talk about if you really can exchange experiences, what is going to happen? It requires you to reduce, compress your own experiences, and it also causes lots of confusion because of the conflict. Right. So this person experiences like all kinds of these confusions, kind of like a psychosis, and that impact her ability to continue the work. And that's also when her own suppressed memories being recalled. So that's kind of
I'm so excited to read this. What books do you find inspire your academic thinking?
So there are so many great academic books, but one thing pop up right away, or I would say like this is something I always tell other people. I would say is Heather Love's work.
Okay.
Because I'm not a historian. I started as a film scholar.
Cool.
Then I'm more interested in the ethnography part. History is something like I don't want to deal with. It's so hard.
It's a beast.
Yeah. But somehow I found now I feel like I am a historian.
Right.
Yeah. But I think when I was a grad student, Heather Love's work resonated a lot with me. Especially her work, she talks about queer history. I guess when I was it's just loud.
I know there's so much terrible construction. It's basically homophobic that it's happening. So I'm sorry to whoever is hearing that.
So I'm really interested in this relationship, like our relationship, our affective entanglement with history. And especially as a Marxists always ask this question, what is our relationship with history? Right. And history is what hurt, according to Frederick Jameson. Yes. So Heather Love in I think this is called Looking Backward. She had this paragraph about the history of the angel of history, talking about this ineffable force that push us to go forward, and what kind of a relationship we want to build with the historical subject who trapped in the dark closet of history.
Right.
Every time I read this, I can send you.
I would love to.
Reading. Yeah. Every time I read that paragraph, it just gives me goosebumps. So I kind of feel like my project in lots of way, the memory, the exchange of experiences, is in a way speaking to a history that we have lost.
Right, like a recovery process.
Right, yeah. But it's also not just like you dig the corpse of the dead queer out of their coffin. It's not like that. It's more like this affective, this erotic process with these subjects.
That's so fascinating.
So yeah, I think Heather Love is one person I really liked. Even I feel like she's talking about a very different context. For the creative part, so when I was a grad student, I taught a queer cinema course, and so I used Todd Haynes' work, Velvet Goldmine.
Okay.
So I watched that film when I was very, very young. When I was in China, this is one of the queer film available to me. But then later on, when I taught the course, so this film is about multiple imaginative history. So I'm not gonna spoil the film if you haven't seen.
I need to watch it.
Yeah, but it's really about blending the different genres and breaking down the boundary between reality and fictional and the imaginative. So all of that. So that's one of the work very important to me. And Cheryl Dunyan's The Watermelon Women is also, so the whole film is shot as a documentary.
Is that a play on the Watermelon Man? Like it's like the man who wakes up in blackface, or no, black man who wakes up white? No, this is different.
No, that's a different. The Watermelon Women is so it's a documentary, or it's a fake documentary. You don't know till the very end when you see the credit. Like the whole movie is that this person saw this movie and there is a black woman in this white film, and I think this woman is like she hold a watermelon. I forgot why it's called the Watermelon Woman, and the filmmaker. The whole movie is about the filmmaker trace the history of this watermelon woman, and herself is also a Black lesbian, and her entanglement with the Black history. But then in the end, if it turned out the whole documentary is fake. So she's talking about what if the history is being erased? How do we reclaim? Like, we cannot just dig the corpse out of it because there's no corpse of that. So we have to create history. So in lots of ways, this speaks to Celia Hartman's critical fabulation, right? As a way to think about the erased historical subject. So I think this work has been very influential to me.
I'm going to go home and check all this out. I'm putting a syllabus together in my head right now.
It's really interesting.
It's fascinating. It makes me think a lot of like Sarah Ahmed's work in affect theory and like the stickiness of affect and how it moves through history and sticks to bodies.
And also the Every Gordon's ghostly matter, the murmur, the whisper.
Right.
So I have some plot kind of like that. So there this main characters keep hearing noises. So it's not like ghostly haunting, but it's a different kind of distraction. That's
fascinating. It's
something
so
like
dense.
that.
I love it. You're also an illustrator.
I would like to see myself to be one.
I've seen some of your illustrations, and I would call you an illustrator. Are they? So these are helping the drawings that you do are helping inspire you write your text, and like you're drawing your characters out. Is that right?
Yeah. Because I think I'm a visual learner.
Right.
Like I have to have the scenes in my head. Right. So just like sketching these characters down or the scene down really helped a lot.
Cool.
Yeah. Like I have to, so each chapter has one illustration. I have to draw this picture down, then to write the chapter, and it helped a lot.
I bet. As someone who suffers with writer's block, I've never tried taking that approach, and that sounds like it would be such a good way to just actually put yourself in a scene.
Yeah, or like doodling.
Yeah,
or,
right. Like, how does this character look? Or I really like that. Are you self-taught, or kind of what's your background with that?
Like, I started learning drawing and painting when I was 4.
Wow.
So all kinds of like oil painting, watercolor. But unfortunately, in China, you have to either choose the artistic school or a regular college or university. Right. So I had to choose the university in order, to go abroad or to do whatever I'm able to do now.
Right.
So giving up the artistic part was kind of like there's like always like something there. So I have been wanting to pick it up. Then this project actually gave me an opportunity to combine this two. In terms of like painting, I haven't developed my own style yet.
Right.
Like I can do all kinds of stuff, and I explore all kinds of genre and multimedia. But I just feel like so far I don't really have my style. So I go back to the most basic thing, the kind of like the manga style. It's the easiest thing to draw. Like it took me like 30 minutes to just like finish one thing, and it helped my thinking a lot.
That's so cool. And they do say the best way to find your own style is to mimic other styles.
Right.
How has your time been so far with the Queer and Trans Research Lab?
It's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love that. That's what I love to hear.
Just one word. Okay, done.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last time. I just feel like the environment here is so supportive.
Right.
And especially looking at other people's projects, it gave me lots of idea. Like every time I go to a talk, or just like chatting with folks here, it always kind of it gave me this brain. How do you call that? Brain orgy.
Yeah, brain orgasm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And we don't have the hierarchies here.
Right.
Yeah, that's like one thing. We talked about this last time. This is the one thing I appreciate the most. Like we value undergraduate and graduate students. And people just like work together. Yeah. It's this type of and also like people all work. Even like we're kind of like linked by queer and trans studies, but then we all do different kinds of work.
So much within that, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree. In that kind of vein of interdisciplinarity, I have two questions. The first one, if you had to redo your academic career, what other department would you be curious to be in?
Should I be honest or not?
Be honest, please. Or not.
I mean, I do think women gender study, if I choose again, I will still choose women gender study. I like it. Yeah. But on the other hand, I have a degree in physics as well.
Wow.
I kind of feel like, my dream, my childhood dream is being either one, a rock star, or two, an astronomer or cosmologist.
That's so cool.
So that's two of them. I mean, the rock star astronomer is a little bit difficult. I mean,
guess,
you
right?
both work at night, so I guess
and stars. There's stars involved.
Yeah, there were stars. Yeah. So I want to study cosmology or astronomy.
That is so cool.
Actually, it's closely linked to queer. I always think so. Okay, this is back. I don't know. This is probably like back 10, 20 years ago. When I first learned queer theory, I feel like queer theory has a lot of similarity with quantum physics.
Cool.
So
please say more.
They are, the principle of uncertainty.
Right.
The relationship between the observers and the observed. In lots of ways mirrors the post-structuralist discussion.
So cool. The idea like the double blind or double slit experiment. The idea
that double slit.
Observation will change the outcome. That's so cool. I guess you kind of answered this, but like, if you had to redo your career outside of academia altogether, what would you choose?
Oh, rock star.
Yeah, there it is.
See, no, but the thing is, like, I can't play any instrument. I mean, I can play, but I'm just not good at it, and I'm out of tune. So, but then, hey, seriously, I really want to be a rock star. But my style would be death metal.
Yes.
Because you don't need to have the tone.
Scream with your voice. Oh my god, cool. I love that. Do you listen to death metal music?
Not really. Like, I'm more progressive kind of person.
Last couple questions. One, what do you like to do for fun?
I do parkour these days, and I got injury a lot from parkour.
Yeah, recently you had was it a wrist injury or?
All kinds of it. Like, I just somehow sprained my shoulder 2 days ago. It's I mean, you live with pain.
Sure. And then finally, do you have any tips at this stage in your academic career as a professor and as a writer? Any tips for prospective students who are looking for a queer and trans community at U of T, or just any tips for students in general?
I feel like for graduate students, one thing I would say is find people who can lift you up, who can advocate for you. When I was a grad student, there was this idea that you need to know well-known people in order to advance.
Right.
You go to conference and you meet big names. Right. But then later on, I realized those people who really helped me or who promoted my work were the people who I grown up with, academically. So like nowadays, like what I do is to, I want to promote my colleagues' work and also, students' work. Lots of advisors, including my advisors, were great. But one thing I kind of struggled with when I was a grad student was they're very strong-minded people. When I say something, they already project my future project, but then that's their project. Right. So I kind of feel like now as an advisor myself, one thing I have been practicing is to listen to other people's project. Of course, like when they say something, I have all the things, all the directions, they should go. But then that might not be what they are pursuing. So as a grad student or as a student in general, your goal is not to meet other people's requirement, to live up to their expectation, but it's really to pursue what you want. And if you know what you're pursuing, you need to find people to support you, to build this network, to catch you when you fall.
Wow. Yes.
So
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I feel like lots of students in Canada, I don't know, I do feel there is a Canadian-US differences. I feel like lots of students I know here, they kind of see the professors as somebody they need to show respect and admire. And they take less initiative than those in the States. Lots of students look for approval from the teachers, from the professors, or from other scholars.
In Canada, you're saying?
In Canada.
Right. Instead of maybe taking more risks and projecting what they want, right? Like what their own project
I think
is.
this is kind of associated with the respect culture here in Canada. They don't want to offend other people, but then really you need to find people who can support you. I feel like lots of grad students or lots of students in general want to get approval from other people. They want to prove themselves to their professors or to their colleague. But then what is important is actually find the right people who can actually advocate for you, especially when you're doing something very radical or very different, where you're pursuing something, you're doing not the beaten trail that, that's one thing I would say. Oh, another thing, I thought this is really important. I actually learned this, way later. I wish I knew this early. Really have a good life and work balance. I feel like lots of people I know these days, they kind of do that way better than I did. Especially, having all kinds of like hobby and academic is not everything.
It's not.
Right.
It's so hard to make that balance.
Yeah,
though.
it's so hard to, you have to somehow, have a plan.
Yeah.
For me, like this could sound very robotic, but I follow a very structured plan. I only work from certain time to certain time. I don't work after 5.
It's healthy boundaries.
Yeah,
That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm constantly working to put up boundaries after they're being crossed.
Yeah,
I'm like, wait, no, instead of having it in advance.
Yeah, but it's easy to say than done.
Yeah.
Like now, like me, I feel like I'm this is my 5th year of being a assistant professor. I'm kind of at the stage I'm like, I don't give a damn.
Yeah, I love
but
that.
when you're like junior, when you're grad student,
and
you
all
just
eyes are on you.
Yeah,
and totally.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's just making me think a great piece of advice could even just to be to set up for your phone to turn your notifications off at a certain point,
Wednesday is my no cell phone. I call unplug Wednesday.
Cool.
Yeah, so today is Wednesday. So
I made you plug in so much.
Well, I only unplug my phone.
Okay,
like I don't check social media. I don't do other. I still use my computer.
Sure. Yeah. That's really smart. Smart.
Yeah. You have to give yourself this, 2 days of unplugging in order to be healthy.
Yeah, and to remember how to think.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like actually, when you empty your mind, it allows you to think clearly.
That's what a good way to end this
Yeah.
interview. Thank you so much, Shana. This was fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah. Part 1. Chimerica. They say that you could still find life beads in China. Where is China? Wrong question. When is China? Chapter 1. Here comes the cool child. Every Monday morning, students were required to wear uniforms for the national anthem ceremony. The uniform of this 重点中学, magnet middle school, was a set of British-style dress suit, navy jacket, white shirt, tie and bow tie, vest for boys, and skirt for girls. Students were excited about the uniform. None of the other schools in Beijing offered fashionable attires like this in the late 90s. But their naive pride of uniqueness was soon crushed by their long-term thinking parents who would often buy clothes 1 or 2 sizes bigger, wishing their children grow into them. The baggy uniform on these 13 years old looked quite funny and out of place. You wore a pair of brand new Dr. Martens. The dragon tattoo on your right forearm looked like a seahorse peeking through the sleeves of the thin shirt. The industrial bar on your left ear was barely covered by newly dyed short hair. 100% punk. You were hailed by the head teacher and questioned, "How could you dress like a rogue? Did you dye your hair too? This is the Zhongdian Middle School." You grinned and quibbled, making up whatever excuse you could. The summer sun bleached your hair, you accidentally used beer as the conditioner, or sometimes you would go a little more extreme. You shave your head and put on a wig, so next time when stopped by a teacher, you could take off the wig and reply unapologetically, "I studied too hard and I have become bald." Teachers didn't like you but couldn't do anything about you. You napped in class and your grade ranked the lowest 5 among your cohort. But when you tried, you could easily get high marks on major exams. You were into postmodernism and psychoanalysis, a book by Frederick Jameson where Sigmund Freud was often spotted under your arm. You seized any writing opportunity in the composition class to give the teacher a lesson on famous homosexuals throughout Chinese history, or open the eyes of your classmates with sexual stories and tales of well-known people and faraway places. When other students performed songs by Britney Spears and danced with the Titanic at the annual May Gala, you used a waiting for Godot-like drama to protest the educational system, drawing enthusiastic cheers and boos from the audience. You were the cool child at school, at odds with everything normative. Chinese familial history, Chinese familial traditions, exam-oriented education, and Communist Party authority, you name it. Oddly enough, cool kid or queer happened to be the Mandarin translation of queer. The rendezvous with queer theory was your destiny. I learned about queer when you introduced me the anthology Queer Theory, Western Thought on Sexuality in the 90s, translated by well-known sociologist of sexuality Li Yinghe. Unlike most of the publications and public discussion on the topic of homosexuality that are meant to teach you to be a good gay, the queer thesis of anti-normativity and gender performativity, along with the forbidden puppy love knocking at my heart, turned my world upside down. In retrospect, we were drawn to queer theory, perhaps because its in-your-face deviance allowed the minor threat punk teens like us to define everything we hated about China. Like many Chinese scholarly and activist engagement with sexuality since the 80s, we were deeply entrenched by the mission of saving China from its political alienation and cultural backwardness. As issues of gender and sexuality were barometers for measuring the nation's level of progress under the zeitgeist of post-socialist transition, the newly formed subjects such as LGBT became the avatar of the heroic national saviors. Even though queer individuals were not granted legal protection and citizenship in the PRC, the nation's future was indeed, tweaking Lee Edelman's words, the cool kid stuff. Unfortunately, saving China was what severed us. "Come on, it's not end of the world." You dismiss my silent protest. "I will only be in the States for 2 years, and I will bring back the most cutting-edge knowledge from the West to set free Chinese homosexuals from the prison of heterosexist patriarchy." You look like possessed by the spirit of Lenin or Che Guevara. "Queers of all countries unite. We have nothing to lose but our chins." Sure, I sneered at the proletariat in the baggy school uniform in front of me. I'm sure you'll be a great leader of the queer Middle Kingdom. It turned out that the queer future you envisioned was no bullshit. In the year 2029, after decades of military rivalry, technological standoff, and economic stagflation, two of the most powerful nations in the world put behind their ideological differences and took a surprising turn to merge into one. In the face of a new common enemy, precarity, and the widening gap between social classes that threatened to topple both regimes, the nascent super-empire, Mankind Unity of Chimerica, launched a mass campaign that promised to uplift the previous oppressed and to restore social harmony and prosperity. Optimizing resources and the most advanced technology, the Unity initiated BJ Dome, a metaverse-like interface that allows its users to be synchronized with life experiences of others. The LGBT+ identified, racially marginalized, and the economically dispossessed soon became the most wanted, for their struggle of oppression, violence, and inequality were believed the best variables to transform the privilege and to rectify social illness. Switching on the red sun, Chimera Purple, tiny photon upconverting nanobots in the donor's body, projects memory neutrons of the donor into the interface, forming what is called life beads. After a quick trimming at the end of the blue sun, life beads are ready to be transfused to the receivers, who wait eagerly to morph into their progressive better selves. The body of the queers is now the medium of revolution and redemption, and the lived history of pain and suffering is a new drug quenching the multicultural thirst. The once deviant and despised in the old world are now the amulet shielding against any charge of racism or homophobia, admired and sought after in the parade of diversity. As the troublemakers and public threat are put on the pedestal and busy enjoying praise and cheers, no more fuss on the street. Chimerica, the perfect unity of contradictions, is proved the best model of managing precarity and resistance in a renewed world of the 21st century. Oh, by the way, did I mention I'm the creator of BJ Dome?